Hey guys, how's it going? So I'm going to show you guys today how to make an Excalibur inspired working lightsaber cutaway. Should be a lot of fun, so let's jump right into it. I downloaded this 3D printing model from pinshape.com. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in one. But this is designed to be printed with a liquid resin 3D printer just because of the really high amount of detail and precision you can get from the resin printers. One thing I did learn is that I need to manually do the supports, and you have to manually align all the parts to get the most efficient printing that you can. I was going to be using the Zortax Inkspire, and I love this machine. It's super easy to use. The touchscreen makes things really simple. You set your own resin levels and things like that, and just get to it. Once you install the flash drive that comes with the machine that has the print file on it, you hit print, and then you go to the print file and just simply press print. It will make you confirm that you have enough resin in the tank. You confirm that and you're off to the races. Now you can also control things like your minimum layer thickness and things like that inside the program from Zortax, the Z Suite program, and it does a really great job for getting some amazing detail. But you can also go down to 1/4 of a millimeter layer, and when it's printed, it looks like a solid piece. You cannot tell any layers or lines in it. For most of these parts, though, I didn't need to do that as I was going to be painting them. After they come out of the printer, I use the Zortax ultrasonic cleaner and clean off all the extra resin before laying them in front of a UV lamp to harden completely. These 3D resin printers are amazing. They literally pull a solid from a pool of liquid. They use UV light to harden the individual layers of each model, and then it continues on to the next layer and so on until you build up the entire model. And for this particular project, there is a whole bunch of parts, so I had to do multiple batches as you couldn't fit all the parts onto the printing platform. But that was okay. It didn't take too long, I guess, relatively, but this is not a super fast process, but you can just walk away and let it run while it's doing its thing. After the models were all printed, I decided I wanted to add some colors. Some of them were going to be a silver machined type color, and some of the other parts are going to be black with blue accents. I went with a Rust-Oleum spray can type paint, and this was a silver, a black, and a blue. The silver and black were going to be coated with a satin gloss, and this would give them more of a machine type look instead of a chromy futuristic look. I really wanted it to look kind of utilitarian and look like it's being used in real life. A couple of the parts were going to need to be cast out of clear epoxy. This was so that when I turned the LED on, it would actually light up and the light would go through a little bit. Now, I did wind up printing a clear with blue tint crystal, and it looks great, but the light doesn't shine through it as much as I wished it would have. But the focus crystal, as it's called, I really wound up liking it being solid clear and using a blue LED behind it. I used a technique that I saw online on YouTube from Timber Ridge Gifts, and it uses clear silicone and cornstarch to make your own silicone epoxy molds. And this worked really well. It's really messy, but it's pretty fun to make, and you can cast anything with this silicone and then pour resin into that cast mold, and you'll have a resin copy of it. As far as I can tell, this worked really well, but I think I used just a little bit too much actual silicone, and I kind of learned a lesson on that. Next time I know not to use more than what I need. But that being said, it did take the models really well, even though I wound up not using the beer crystal that I wound up casting. I went back and actually used this blue one that I used for the mold. It is a translucent blue that I had printed on the printer, but I didn't know how it was going to react with the LED, but it wound up looking really nice, other than I wish it was a little more translucent, but it still looked good either way. I also needed to cast what was called the focus crystal, which is this triangular piece with a hole in the bottom. This would be where the LED would go into the back of this, and it would illuminate the rest of everything that was going to be illuminated inside the lightsaber. As you can see, the mold worked really well. They came out really clean and left a really nice mold inside that could be used to cast with resin. So I used some clear Total Boat and cast out both of the crystals. And again, I wound up not using the longer clear crystal just because I wound up really liking the look of the blue crystal I printed a little more. The small pours can be really, really tricky because if you get your ratios off on such a small amount, it really can affect how the epoxy cures. So with these Total Boat pump systems, it made things a whole lot easier. It's a matched 1-to-1 pump, so for every 1 pump of resin, 1 pump of hardener goes in, and it worked beautifully. And they came out really clear, and I was happy with how they came out. Again, I just wound up really liking the blue longer crystal just a little bit better. I thought it added a little bit more of a unique, colorful look to the lightsaber, so I wound up not using that. But the crystal clear focus crystal from the resin pour, I did use, and it turned out really nice. I wanted this lightsaber display to have kind of an Excalibur feel, almost like the sword and the stone. So I went with this really interesting piece of walnut burl, and I was going to turn it on the lathe, but it was just too complicated to get it balanced. And I really like the look of how it looks like this, but the inside of it wound up being almost entire bark inclusion. So I'm kind of glad I didn't turn it. I wound up cutting a large enough hole that the end of the lightsaber would fit inside after I added some softer type material like a piece of felt almost, just to keep it from scratching up the lightsaber's paint and colors. And it wound up looking really nice, especially when the lightsaber is in it. It looks just like Excalibur sticking out of the stone. The first step to putting together the lightsaber is to install the magnets in the spots that were printed out in the model. And this would allow you to split the lightsaber pretty much in half or take off the top cover so that you can see the inner workings and the light while it's lit up. And it's just a really cool process. Punch it! There's a good many magnets to put in, but you also have to make sure to get the polarity correct or they will not line up and click together. Next, on the pommel, I wanted the accent pieces on the pommel to be a blue instead of just black all the way through. Now, I could have printed a different version of the pommel with the small tabs separate and then painted them, but I decided just to print them together so it would print easier and a little bit cleaner, and I would just tape off and spray the accents the color I liked. I wanted to go with the same blue as the rest of the accents. Like on the grips, with the grip section, there is small blue pieces that actually add a little bit of a grippy texture. With the pommel finished, it was time to start assembling all the parts for the lightsaber. The first thing I needed to start putting together was the emitter and the cooling fan housing. At least that's what they are called on the print list from the project that I downloaded offline to print out all these parts. And I just used some Starbond adhesives, glue, thick CA glue, and some of the activator just to speed up the process, and it worked really, really well. All these parts are pretty much held together with super glue, and they are usually a really tight fit. Before I was able to mount the focus crystal, I needed to remove it and the other crystal from the silicone mold I had made earlier. Again, I'm not using this longer crystal, but the focus crystal looked really well, and I needed to drill in a 5mm hole in the back to accept the LED, and I used some 12,000 grit sandpaper to polish it up a little bit and just make it a little clearer. Then I glue all the mounts onto the crystals to get ready to mount them into the handles. Next was to assemble the back side of the grips and handle. Assembling the manifold piece was really interesting, as the manifold was something that could be printed out in multiple parts or as one large simple part, and then you use small hobby wire or steel wire and make the little connecting wires between the actual manifold and the base it goes into. After that, I needed to wire up the switch that would control the light, and then I wound up wiring up the rest of the lightsaber along with the LED at one time, even though my camera died, so unfortunately I didn't get to show it all. But it's a really simple wiring process with about 4 or 5 wires running to a small lithium battery, and I will put links up to everything, and you'll get to see where to go get it, or if you're interested in building one on your own, you can get all the parts you need. With all the wiring done, it was time to get onto the home stretch and get this thing finished up. One of the last pieces to glue on is to attach this small aesthetic button, and this just makes turning the light on and off and just a little more aesthetically pleasing, and when you have the lightsaber together, it completes the look. I wanted to add some Danish oil finish to this walnut Burl type piece that was going to be the display, and it looks amazing finished. It looks just like a stone, and I'm super happy with how that came out. So what do you guys think? Would you have went with a blue, green, purple? What would you have changed? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you like this project, make sure to hit that like button. That helps this channel grow, and I really appreciate all the support. Make sure you subscribe, and if you want to get more videos or pictures, head over to the Instagram at jpaynewoodworking and check out jpaynewoodworking.com, where you'll find a detailed article about how I built this really awesome lightsaber and had fun doing it. So guys, I really appreciate all the support again, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
It is obvious that this contest cannot be decided by our knowledge of the Force, but by our skills with a lightsaber.